Okay. We can start. 10 is quorum to me. Good morning, the people on this side of the ponds, and good evening, the people back home. Today, our conversation is going to be on caregiver fatigue. And as usual, we will start with mtu wetu wa hotuba, that is Saya. Will give us an intro and then we'll start with the panelists. Saya, kazi kwako.
Thank you once again. At times, people put out memes with the intention of them being funny. They achieve the initial humor, and they do a bit more than that. They make you think some more. So over the years, there's been lots of memes, especially about Kenyan nurses. I think two of them stand out. One was a meme that somebody put and said, we're waiting for a contest between the Safaricom shop ladies, the ladies who do M-Pesa. In Kenya, we call them Wamama Mademo M-Pesa, Wapatane, na they compete with the nurses. And then whoever wins in rudeness will meet with the touts, with the matatu touts in the finals of rudeness. It began showing you how Kenyan people perceive these three categories of caregivers: touts, M-Pesa ladies, and nurses. And then the second one was a thread where people were asking, what's the one thing a nurse has ever told you that you've never recovered from? And one of the people said one day he was really sick in hospital, and when his name was called to go in for his appointment, he was so weak, he was holding himself against the wall as he walked, and the nurse at the end of the corridor just shouted back and said, hey, Spider-Man, you're meant to come this direction. This stereotype, or these numerous stories about nurses saying things that range from the humorous to the bizarre to the just downright uncaring stuff, prompted me to ask. I come from a background, a family that is very medical oriented, and then I have very many friends. I have a sibling who's a nurse. I have friends who are nurses. And so it piqued my curiosity to ask them, like, do people have then a unit? You know, one of the core units you do is rudeness 201, or, rough answers 402, and you need to pass this. And they then opened my eyes to understand, and especially you begin realizing that these forms of rudeness are more in public institutions, public facilities, than they are in private. I'm not saying I'm not saying it's an entire public institution affair, and the private ones are blameless, but just in proportion, it's more in public than it is in private. And when they talked to me about it, they told me it just boils down to the workload that they have. You have so much to try and deliver, and your room or your capacity for empathy is really diminished, especially for individuals who are playing sick role who are not truly sick. So that just got me thinking, could it be that then the same misunderstanding or misrepresentation we've done for this one category of caregivers, the nurses, is true in many other areas? And at least nurses, we can see that they give care physically. But I kept imagining, what about those who give care that is not seen? I'm talking about counselors, people who we confide and listen to. I'm talking about individuals who care about our children and the various forms of care. Could it be that there is what has seemed to be external behavior that is really more deep down, right? Either a way of venting, or a way of protecting, or a way of releasing themselves out of it. And then, of course, because naturally I inclined to history, it made me then begin thinking, might it be that the old African way had a presence? Because in many African settings, for instance, when a lady got to time of delivering her child, she would be sent back either to her mother or to her husband's mother. And it was not just the work of the mother. There'd be like a team of females who'd be able to take care of her towards the time of delivery and after the time of delivery. And needless to say, back then we probably had way fewer cases of what we then now call postpartum depression, because the female would be surrounded with quite an amount of support, as opposed to now when a pregnant woman has to almost wait towards the extreme end for her to take her leave days. And even when she takes her leave days, the cost of taking care of the child is so high, she takes most of the challenge upon herself. And it is no wonder many more women are burning out on both ends as they take care of their young ones. It even made me think, might we even be mislabeling postpartum depression as postpartum depression? Could it be just another variant of caregivers having fatigue? Only in this case, the caregiver in this instance is the very mother, the child. In one tenet in psychology is, for you to really combat something, you need to label it appropriately. If you're feeling angry, you need to be able to identify that what you're struggling with is anger and not mislabel it. Then you're able to deal with it. And as we delve into today's discussion, I'm curious, might we be mislabeling many other things as other different stuff, but really what they are is caregivers being fatigued? Could parents who are harshly reprimanding their children be a case of caregiver fatigue? They're just overwhelmed and they unleash this. What are the symptoms? What are the remedies, most importantly, for this important thing? For if the caregiver gets fatigued, then the care receiver is going to be in problems. And as we probably will see, care is not just the physical tending to the sick. It is every act that is given to be able to relieve or give ease to whichever form of suffering, whether it be physical, mental, or material. Because maybe then care needs to become an acronym for constant attention and relief emotionally. Back to you, studio.
Thank you, Saya, for that. And so we'll just go to the professionals who will give us the definitions, and then we'll go on from there. And I think because Hamida and Asaf have not been here for a while, they can reintroduce themselves to us. But we'll start with Hamida because she's our psych person. Who exactly is a caregiver?
Okay, of course, it's just as straightforward as the term caregiver is talking about. But let me start by introducing myself. My name is Hamida Ahmed. I am a psychologist, a consultant psychologist. By profession, I work with children, I work with adults and couples and families as well. I am also the CEO and founder of Tulivu Counseling and Wellness Services. I also consult for different organizations, including a major hospital here in Nairobi, Aga Khan, where we have started a home care program for cancer patients. And I'm mentioning this because, of course, it touches a lot on caregiving. So I would say that, the term caregiver simply means that a caregiver is a person who provides care to people who need to care for themselves, meaning that the recipient of the caregiving is not able to care for themselves and hence needs somebody else to take care of them. And that's where now the role of the caregiver begins. Thank you, Posa.
So and what are the categories? Because I know we have people who actually are recognized as caregivers, the nurses, the doctor, anyone in the healthcare profession. but our house girls, our mothers, our sisters-in-law are not recognized as caregivers. In fact, we do not have a particular term in most of our mother tongues for caregiver. So what's the official, is there like an official category for professional versus non-professional caregivers?
I think they are all caregivers. As long as we're taking care of another person, you are a caregiver. Whether people recognize or appreciate you as a caregiver or not, the fact is that you're a caregiver. Whether you are doing it in a professional setup where you are getting a salary to do it, or you're at home taking care of a relative or taking care of children, because I mean, some of the caregivers are doing it as a job, like the nurses, the doctors, the psychologists, yeah? We are doing it, and mostly it's because we also get paid to do that job. But we have, I think, majority of the caregivers are at home, in the home setups, where people or parents, or taking care of children, for example, taking care of people living with disability, taking care of the sick, or taking care, other people experiencing different needs, the old, for example, and who are not able to take care of themselves. So I would say both in the professional setup and in the home setup, we have caregivers. They may not be recognized as such, but that's exactly what they're doing. Yeah.
Okay. Asaf, do you want to add on to Hamida? I know this from the pharmacy medic side, we do not have that training, but from your life in as a hospice person, do you have any addition to that? First of all, introduce yourself to us, and then just if you could answer the question.
Thank you, Pastor. My name is Dr. Asaf Kinyanjui. I serve at Nairobi Hospice as a Chief Executive Officer, and I've been also providing palliative care services to patients and families over the last almost 6 years. My interpretation in terms of caregiver, I look at it from both professional and non-professional perspective. We are professionals who are trained formally to provide care. That's, as you say, the medical professionals as much. And in Kenya, we also need to appreciate we have a category of individuals who are also trained to provide care at home. That is a nurse assistants, or what we call the nurse aides. They do a lot of care for patients who are severely ill, are bedridden, and also sort of to actually do sort of like a 24-hour care to these patients. And again, we have a lot of burnouts and such. But the beauty is that most of the professionals are appreciated in terms of salaries and such compensations. Now, for non-professionals, this is where we have a big challenge because this is sometimes individuals who are working, then their loved one gets sick and they have to sort of maybe quit their job to sort of provide care to their loved one on a holistic sort of perspective. And these are the ones who I personally feel when I do home visits, when I support patients at home, they highly not recognized, they are not paid, and sometimes rarely even they have any sort of supportive measure to help them as they continue with caregiving. So we have both, as Amida said, professional and non-professional caregivers.
Thank you, Asaf. So then let's go to the topic for today, caregiver fatigue. Is it the right point to start, or is there another definition, Hamida, I should have given to this topic? Just what exactly is caregiver fatigue, or is it an end point to something? What starts it off?
Yeah, I mean, you start off by giving care, providing care, whether it is voluntarily or circumstantial, because sometimes you're the only one that is available to provide care at that point. No matter how it starts for the sole purpose of supporting this individual or a group of people. But as the days go by, as the job continues, then the things start to change. the caregivers then start experiencing physical, emotional, and psychological fatigue. They start getting tired. The kind of energy maybe they would have started with, or they started with, you know, at the beginning of caring for these people, it is depleting slowly. They're finding themselves not enjoying or not getting the satisfaction of being there for that person. Yeah, you might find that now people are physically feeling very exhausted because maybe they have to wake up at odd hours to take care of this person. Maybe they have to provide medication and do all those duties. And by the end of the day, the caregiver is a human being. So with time, you know, it's like caring for a small baby. You have to wake up very early in the morning or at night and all those times, then the mother gets tired. Yeah, so for this caregiver, for example, who is taking care of a sick person or an old person or a person living with disability, or even, you know, somebody who is terminally ill, as Daktari has said, then it can be very exhausting because it demands a lot from you. Physically, you have to be there. Emotionally, you know, keeping the appointments or doing whatever it is that they're supposed to get. And remember, you are a human being with your own life. So some people have to literally stop what they've been doing to be able to take care of this person. Some people, like the sandwich generation, yeah, that I saw on the poster, you have your own family, which comes with a lot of responsibilities. You are a mother, you are a father. People are looking up to you and fully depending on you. But then you have your aging parents. Maybe some of them are sick, or, you know, they need your care. So you can see how demanding then your role becomes. You are an employee at your workplace, for example, or even if you're running a business, I mean, that requires your output as well. Yeah, you're somebody's friend, you're somebody's this and that. So you're one person, but wearing very many hats, which are all requiring of you to be present. So you may find now a caregiver slowly, now getting physically exhausted, emotionally, they're tired, they are not connecting to the recipient of the caregiving as maybe they used to at the beginning. Yeah, they're becoming numb. Hence, you know, that example by Saya of nurses being very rude, very arrogant, and very, you know, because as a human being, you know, we practice self-preservation. So people get numb, and they kind of detach from the source of the stress. So you may find that slowly, this person is not as caring to the caregiver as they used to, not because they're bad people, but because they are getting emotionally exhausted. You have even unfortunately heard of cases. If you Google, you will see, you know, even videos of caregivers literally abusing or physically attacking their own patients. Why are they doing this? Yeah, why are our nurses, especially in our Kenyan system, why are they considered to be very rude and very arrogant? I mean, it just doesn't come from the blues. They go to the profession, very good, caring people, but then they change. What is that makes them change? Because they give and give and give, and it's very surprising because the nurses, I don't even know whether they get counseling, whether they get proper psychological debriefing. So you can see why it's so easy for them to detach and see their patients just as statistics and not human beings. Because it takes a lot of energy for you to connect to another human being. It has to be intentional. But the more you're doing that, the more it takes away from you. Then it reaches a point, then you have now to protect yourself by just looking at yourself and detaching yourself from them. Yeah, and of course, it's just like when you're told, you know, when you board the plane, what are you supposed to do? You have to put on your oxygen mask first in case of anything before you support anybody else. Unfortunately, sadly, most of the caregivers, especially in the medical profession, do not know maybe or have the resources to wear their own masks. Yeah.
Thank you. Asaf, the same question. What is compassion fatigue? And I know during our training, we were not taught anything about self-care, everything. We were supposed to give to the patients. And I know there are many times we were flustered. There were many times, even I was rude to a client or so, because sometimes, yeah, it got there. So my question is, from your point, what's caregiver fatigue, and what is the hospice doing, especially on the professional side, to teach people about this issue and how to protect themselves from caregiving fatigue?
Yeah, thank you. So just to add to what Hamida mentioned, apart from just that you have physical, emotional, and mental sort of drain or challenge, in caregiving actually adds up even up to the financial aspect, which again, most of the time we really focus on. If you, for example, if you have a nurse in a public hospital serving about 50 patients alone, you'll find if she used to run like a small kiosk in the evening, by the time it's getting to the evening, she's so fatigued, she's so tired that she ends up neglecting that sort of initiative. If you look at non-professionals, what then happens is that there are individuals who sort of end up even sacrificing their finances or their income as they take care of their loved one at home. So it's just the physical, emotional, mental, but I think it goes even up to the financial aspect of it in terms of the scope. Some of the issues, as you slightly said, medical professionals we are not trained to look at our issues. We are always trained about look at your patient's needs and do as much as possible to address their needs. In that scenario, then you find this healthcare worker is always sort of going out of their way to try and meet the needs of their patient. When I used to work in public hospital, sometimes you'll find a patient who comes and they need a simple antibiotic. It's not in the facility. And you know for sure if you don't support this patient, is going to die. And what will happen is sometimes we used to have a small Arabe within the ward just to even contribute some money as medical professionals to support this patient. If you continue with the same trend, then you realize how stressful that environment is, because you start feeling like the system is setting you up for failure, and you feel the system doesn't even appreciate the sort of care you give to your patient. Again, you find the supervisors in most of the facilities, they hardly appreciate what their staff goes through, and that puts a lot of issues. So when the staff doesn't even have a sort of a backup place where they could go to their supervisor and say, I'm having ABCD. Sometimes when you go to your supervisor and say, I'm feeling like burnout, supervisor will ask you, so what do you want me to do? I only have one nurse to cover the ward. So you continue with your burnout, but provide care to the patient. So this individual will continue sort of trying to give their best, but in the end, actually, they end up breaking down because of that talk of social and even professional support. I know one of the things the government is doing is to try and introduce a sort of supportive mechanism for healthcare professionals. It's still in very infancy stage, and it's something people are now starting to appreciate that needs to be there. And especially came during the COVID, when we had a high number of individuals affected by COVID. I think that's the time the policymakers started appreciating the impact of caregiver fatigue. From a palliative care perspective, as we train healthcare workers, one of the things we also touch on is self-care, teaching individuals how to appreciate when to sort of take a break even to sort of even assess themselves from, are they having any sort of notice any changes in their moods? Have they to notice any changes even in their body functions and such? And sometimes even encouraging them to form small support groups within their facility where they can even be debriefing on a regular schedule. And that's healthcare workers are seems to sort of appreciating that there is need for self-care as they continue caring for patients. The challenge mostly is from now the non-professionals who sometimes they don't have any sort of supportive mechanism for them as they experience this. I've seen instances where an individual is taking care of their mother and other siblings just dump that responsibility to one person. They say, wewe ndio uko na nyumba kubwa, so mamangu atakuja ishi kwako. And the other siblings take off. So when you do a home visit, then you find these non-healthcare providers or non-professionals are in a lot of emotional challenge. Unfortunately, a healthcare worker can walk out of a ward, but you can't walk out of your mother. So you continue giving until you drop dead. And therefore, has a need for even looking at how do we support caregivers, even from who are providing care at home and taking care of their loved ones.
And that's my biggest worry. At least we professionals can have CMEs. We can be taught how to care. We can have our shifts changed, and hopefully one day that awful 12-hour shift that medical workers, watchmen, house girls will end one day. But I'm just wondering about these non-professional or family caregivers. Who's catering to them? Who's talking to them? I don't see us talking to them, and I'm just wondering what we can do to reach out to these non-professional family caregivers, because they're the ones bearing the brunt of the whole thing. Even in the US, they're the ones who are bearing the brunt of the whole thing. It's not just the medical caregivers who can actually work at who are actually paid at least something that's commensurate to their work. Hamida, what are we doing as a society to just cater to our this category of people?
Yeah, I think I agree with you, Posa. Unfortunately, there isn't so much to tap on. Many caregivers will tell you it's such a lonely journey. Such a lonely journey, because even the people who support you initially, get their own burnout in a way, and they remove themselves from supporting you. So you may start the journey, being a group of you, but then you may end up now finding yourself being alone, because this is somebody that you cannot abandon. And unfortunately, we do not have many of those support systems for the caregivers. If you are able to join a support group, and especially the support groups that do not charge, they're just free, I think that can be very, 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 very encouraging to you, because you get to meet other people who are in a similar boat, and you get to share. Sometimes even just talking about what your experience is, or even listening to somebody else going through a similar experience, gives you hope. You realize that you're not alone. But what I think we should do as a community or as a people is that, we need to create spaces for the caregivers where they can just go and be themselves and get the support that they require, because it is a very tough job, very, very, very tough job. And many of us who are not maybe in those shoes might not fully understand what the caregivers go through. So psychoeducation is also another thing, just educating the caregivers that, it's very important for you to take care of yourself. You need to put on your mask. You need to do activities that fill your cup, so that you can be able to pour to this recipient, to the sick person, or to the person that you take care of. So basically encouraging the caregivers to take care of themselves. self-care is absolutely key. Otherwise, it is very easy for somebody to crash. If at all, somebody like me, being a psychologist, I mean, I get to deal with a lot of people, yeah. And you know, I take and take and take, but I have to know what my limit is and remove myself from the situation and go and refill my tank before I'm able to come back and continue serving. Yeah. So the caregivers are serving. They're giving you know, a very important service that is really needed, but they have to also take care of themselves so that they can continue serving. So self-care is key. Them being away from the person that they're caring for, just being away from that person, allowing somebody else to step in if possible, yeah, allowing somebody else to come in to relieve them, especially in the home setup. You know, in the professional setup, at least we have structures, a bit of structures in place. I'm not saying that there's no burnout there. There's a lot of burnout, and the nurses and the doctors and all those medical professionals, they need to take care of themselves as well. It's very key, yeah. So basically removing yourself from that situation is important. Doing activities that used to make you happy, you know, those hobbies that you used to do, you used to enjoy, you need to go back and do some of those things to take care of yourself. Even going to a salon, for example, or a barber shop just to get a haircut, a simple haircut, you know, taking a long shower, taking a walk, being able to just sit in silence without being asked for anything or being called, there's this and that, you know, being needed. Yes, spending time with yourself is key, okay? Talking to somebody is also very important. Even like yesterday, I mean, I was just working with a family, you know, who have a patient in the hospital, just supporting them. And by the time that they were walking away, I mean, the energy was different. So finding a professional to talk to is very important. Even if you're not able to afford, for example, therapy, finding someone who can listen to you is key. And I know sometimes people get tired of listening to you, but figure out how you can get somebody that can at least be able to listen to you. So self-care is absolutely important. And it doesn't have to cost money. It's just you, first of all, being aware of what you're going through and saying, you know what, I need to put myself first. I know I'm supposed to take care of this person, but I also have to take care of myself in order for me to be able to take care of them. And it's okay for you to ask for help. It's okay for you to say, I'm tired. It's okay for you to say, I cannot do this today. Can I get help? Yeah. So asking for help is also important. Yeah.
So I'm just wondering. I'm just wondering, my cousin Naliaka in Ebuchifi village, all the villages in Western have to be mentioned. My cousin Naliaka in Ebuchifi village, how does she recognize that she has burnout? She's taking care of our other richer uncles, cousins, richer uncles, cousins, aunties, grandfather who had a stroke. How does she recognize? She has basic education. How does she recognize that she has burnout? And all these things you're saying, a long shower, talking to someone, how does my cousin Aliaka in Ebuchifi get to do all that? So how does she recognize she has caregiver fatigue, and how does she practice self-care, and she's being paid 5,000 bob? And that's to any of you, Asaf or Hamida.
Okay. I think one of the biggest challenge we have in our society is that we have a society sort of disintegration. When I was a young boy in the village, when we used to have one person, individual who is sick, I would see our mothers and our grandmothers used to sort of make a rota who is going to, in the morning, to fix breakfast for this individual. We, as kids, will be sent to the river to fetch water and firewood and such things. And therefore, you find even the primary caregiver sort of is relieved is not providing this care in a 24-hour setting. Now that has really changed now that every family's, there's very limited community involvement in supporting the sick. And therefore now you find one member of the family probably is sort of delegated that role of a caregiver. And one of the things we need just to do is to try and sensitize people on the need of community involvement and sharing of responsibilities and resources, even at the family level. What I usually, there's something I sort of coin and call it professional protection. So when I do a home visit, I'm very keen after attending to the patient requesting to have a word with the caregiver and ask her how him or her, how are you feeling, what are the issues, are you having challenges? And you find they actually really appreciate that moment because no one sort of acknowledges what they are going through. And after that, what I usually do is request for a family conference where we'll sit down with other family members and say we need to make sort of a rota and have everyone on board and everyone being given a sort of a responsibility. In other instances, and especially when they have some resources, sometimes I recommend even sort of a respite care, where you'd say, let this patient get admitted in a hospital for a couple of days, as you guys take a break from taking care of your loved one. And therefore, when the patient is now being brought back home, everyone sort of feels they have a renewed energy to continue with caregiving. These things work very well in sort of urban centers. In your village and even in my village, sometimes those are still issues and still challenge in terms of even access to professionals who will be able to provide that sort of guidance. But one of the things we need just is to try and encourage caregivers to shout when they feel they are losing it, and also to sort of try and mobilize communities and other members of the family to participate in the care. Some of them, actually, when they have in this burnout, unfortunately, is actually from their own sort of challenges, because there are some caregivers who sort of block everyone from when they want to, they don't seek help. So I let individuals appreciate that there's need to seek help, there's need to shout, and there's also a need to delegate responsibilities to other members. Helps a lot, even at the village level. And I think those are some of the things we really need to sort of encourage our caregivers, especially at home, to do that. For like, as I mentioned, we have also like the nurse assistants who provide sort of 24-hour care. One of the things I always encourage them is after they have taken care of a patient for, let's say, for a week, they need to take like 2 days off before they could come back and continue supporting the patient. And that I've seen really helps in terms of making sure that they're able to also get a relief and be able to focus on other aspects of their life. But it's still a gap, and especially in our rural settings.
Okay, so I guess Hamida, you'll tell Yaka when she's getting caregiver. Okay, just go ahead.
Yeah. Of course, when it comes to your cousin, boss, I mean, just, the general feeling of being overwhelmed. And nimechoka. I don't know what to do anymore. I'm just feeling tired. I'm feeling overwhelmed. I can't focus anymore, constantly worried. Anxiety, and anxiety kicks in because of the many responsibilities that they have to take care of. So you may find they're running up and down, doing different things. And that might trigger, some level of anxiety. And also when somebody starts, having challenges with their own sleep, not being able to sleep or sleeping too much, then that could be another indicator that, hey, this job of caregiving is getting at me. And also when you're talking about, eating habits, eating too much, for example, comfort eating, because you're so stressed and you just find yourself eating all the time, trying to calm your system down, then of course that leads to gaining a bit of weight. Or sometimes some people are completely not able to eat. Their appetite is gone. You can imagine maybe somebody who has to take somebody, a patient to hospital all the time, and they get exposed to environments that they're not comfortable with. Then you may find they're not able to feed themselves very well, or because of running up and down, they don't even have the time to eat. Just yesterday, I was talking to one caregiver, and this caregiver had not eaten the whole day because they were running up and down taking care of their loved ones. So you have to remind them, please, hey, you need to go and get something to eat. So you can imagine this person who is continuously not eating, what happens to their weight? They start losing weight. So that might be one of the symptoms. Feeling angry, getting easily irritated. And sometimes it's not because this caregiver is a bad person, but they are human. They are completely depleted. You may find that they may start having resentment towards the person that they're giving care to, which is sad. When you start feeling that you are getting irritated when this person calls you or to change them or to get them something, I mean, you feel like you feel annoyed, you feel angry, then that's an indicator that I'm not coping very well, And then some caregivers, because of feeling overwhelmed, they might now withdraw themselves instead of reaching out for help. They withdraw, they start, avoiding people, avoiding friends, avoiding family. They just want to keep to themselves because they don't want to engage. It's just too much for them, The feeling of sadness is also another indicator of, the caregiver burnout, just feeling sad, feeling hopeless. Maybe you are dealing with somebody whose condition is not changing for the better. It's getting worse, or it's just, plateauing. It's not moving. It's not changing. So you might find that the one other indicator might be, a feeling of sadness, a feeling of hopelessness, And because of all these things, you may now find, the caregivers' immunity getting affected. So they start falling sick themselves, something small gets at them, body pains, maybe they're constantly having a headache, And unfortunately, some might start now using negative ways of coping. For example, if somebody used to drink one beer, now they're taking 5 bottles just to numb whatever it is that they're experiencing. So the use of alcohol, the use of drugs, the use of prescription medication to just try and cope might be also another symptom of them not being able to cope very well. Yeah.
So I'm just wondering, not all of us get not all caregivers get the fatigue. So what determines who gets fatigued and who doesn't? And what's the difference between being compassionate and being empathetic? Like, if you're compassionate, does that make you less likely to get caregiver fatigue? And if you're empathetic, does that make you more likely to get caregiver fatigue? Any of the above? Hamida, today it's just the two of you, so polite. Do you want to?
Yeah.
Okay, you can take Hamida, go on, because this I think is a psych for pharmacy.
Oh no! Wow, compassion, fatigue, and what was the other one? Just being empathetic. Yeah, empathy. Empathy is putting yourself in another person's shoes and trying to understand, look at things from their perspective. Yeah. But I feel like compassion is deeper. I mean, there's much more connection to this person, because with empathy, like us, as we are trained to have empathy, I might have the most difficult case during the day, but I'm able to go home and sleep because I'm able to detach myself from my work. And when I'm dealing with my client, the empathy is there. I'm able to connect with them. Yeah, I'm able to empathize with what they're going through, but I'm also trained to be able to detach from that and be able to move on. But now I'm thinking, I don't know, unless I check, but the compassion, I'm just imagining it's much more, you know, having compassion for somebody is much deeper. Yeah, but at the same time, being able to detach or being able to take care of yourself does contribute to whether then the burnout happens or not. Because each person, first of all, is different. Each person is providing caregiving to a different kind of a person. We all have different levels of resilience. So looking at my workload as well, what kind of workload is this person dealing with? What kind of resilience does this person have? How many balls are they dealing with? Where is this caregiver at themselves as an individual? Yeah, maybe when this happened, they were already dealing with their own personal thing. And suddenly they have been put in this situation that just adds more to them. So there are different situations that contribute to somebody getting burnout. If this person is not getting the support that they need, for example, if it's somebody taking care of a parent, the other siblings, wamesema, like the doctor said, akona nyumba kubwa, so wamekuachia, the sick person, you're the one doing everything. Yeah, you eventually get tired. So if you have a good support system where you are able to change roles, yeah, and you are allowed to go and take care of yourself, that is quite beneficial. But if you have to do everything, sometimes you see, mothers with children who are living with disability, yeah, carrying them on their backs. This mother, the same mother, has other children that she's supposed to feed. Yeah, she has to look for unga, and at the same time, she has to take care of the needs of a child who has disability. I mean, that can be quite draining. So different situations with different caregivers and caregiving situations, then resulting into different levels of either compassion fatigue or burnout. Yeah.
Saya, I want to, why am I echoing? Okay, so, Saya, I want you to bring in the aspect of black tax. And since you're our pastor over here, if you can talk about the compassion, the same caregiver fatigue for men of the cloth and men of the mosque. Hamida is here. If you can talk about that and just throw in the black tax aspect that you can add the nyumba kubwa part over there. And yes, Naliaka will never lose appetite. If you see a Luya has lost appetite and is a caregiver, they have fatigue. Take care of them. There's a problem. Yes. We are allowed to make fun of our own tribe. Yes, Sarah, go ahead.
Okay. So in black tax, it doesn't just have, it's not just the expectation that you will give money, it's also the expectation that you will give of yourself. You'll give and give and give and still keep giving some more. And one of the biggest tools used to achieve this is some form of guilt. From variants like who will take care of you when you're older, or also your turn will come, and various variants. So a lot of the black tax giving of self has a societal expectation side to it, and B, some guilt aspect to it. So some people are flamed out, they're completely flamed out, but their sense of what's it called, community or duty to the community keeps them going on, because to drop the ball is not just to let down the person they're giving care, but there's a whole bigger expectation. So in a certain sense, the caregiver in that time is not just extending care to the person in need, but is also by extension meeting and shouldering responsibilities beyond people in immediate environment of care. I'd be very keen to hear what the professionals have to say this, because for such a person to give themselves permission to walk away from that situation is in many times not something within their power, because their presence in that room of care is not just their own decision. It is held in behalf of many others. And that's a dynamic that's often very disturbing. And you notice I'm very measured, because the stories of very many people I've either walked with or counseled with who are giving care keep coming to mind, and I'm resisting the urge to quote or paraphrase them. But I do know that some individuals have felt, tired. You're taking care of your mother and you're genuinely tired. You've burnt out, or you're burning from both ends of the stick, as it were, and you can't go away because your siblings expect you to be there. Your rest of your relatives expect to be there. So black tax, if improperly handled, can keep going. And often, very often, the individual who is expected to pay with their time is the one who is less endowed materially, because often the argument is, in any case, you're not doing anything. Because if you're not bringing money, then you're not really doing, it's considered that you're really not doing anything. And therefore, you being there is expected to be, there's something you should do. I don't have an answer to how to solve that. I just wanted to flesh that out. Hopefully it'll be done. On the men of the cloth and giving, men and women of the cloth and giving care, there's a recent Barna study, I think it's actually out 2 weeks ago, thereabout, that speaks about pastoral burnout. Because in many settings, pastors are what DOs or DCs used to be in colonial times, or what chiefs are in this particular time. They mediate on quite a number of things. They pray for our newborn, they bury our dead, they pray for our assets, they cancel our marriages, they unite the living, they do all manner of things. They don't really have an 8 to 5, because need does not follow that 8 to 5. And therefore, many pastors find themselves in a time where in a setting where they are not only giving, but are also expected to give. If somebody has run into a problem at 10 in the night, the person they're thinking about is their pastor, and they're going to pick their phone and call and expect that their pastor will be not only able to pick, but able to also help. There are many cases where I've called my pastoral friends, and they'll tell me like, hey, I'm resting. Last night, we had to run away and do 1 or 2 things in the night. When the way many churches are structured and the way many mosques are structured is pretty hierarchical, so that the pastors or the imams don't have people to debrief with. They can't debrief with their board. They can't, in many cases, debrief with their elders' council, because the pastors or the imams or the sheikh is the one people come to for counsel. And therefore, the pastor becomes a recipient of, a dispenser. The only thing they're receiving is requests and requests and requests. And they experience a certain form of loneliness and a certain form of burnout. Also equally is because a pastoral curriculum is about nurture of the flock. Much of the curriculums also do not possess nurture of the individual. And when it talks about the individual, it probably will talk about the cultivation of the spiritual disciplines, prayer, study of whichever scriptures. And often many times the pastors are giving or being forced to give beyond their zone of competence. So if your marriage is in problems because of financial matters, the pastor is suddenly meant to become a financial expert and counsel you. If it is because of a health-related matter, suddenly the pastor needs to become an expert in erectile dysfunction and, walk you guys through that. If it is something about boundaries, a pastor suddenly also needs to switch hats and teach to you about boundaries. And for crying out loud, this individual went through 4 years of training where they studied Greek and Hebrew and organizing meetings and stuff. For us to expect this of them is a bit much. And I read a quote where a young pastor was asking an old accomplished pastor, what's a secret of success? And the old pastor said, you need to do all you can to eliminate hurry in your life. And he kept quiet. And the younger pastor expected him to continue. And the older pastor was done. That the thing was the need to eliminate hurry. And for pastors and imams, this constant demand may need to be met with the wisdom of the older pastor, that somehow they need to know how to eliminate hurry. And at least within the structures, there are ways to do that. One is to use something found in scripture called the Jethro principle, where it's taken from the experience of Moses had begun behaving in manners that during the movement of Israel from Egypt to Canaan, the original structure that was adopted was not sustainable. He was sitting and every case was being given to him. And Jethro straight up told him, what you're doing is not good. It's going to burn you out and you're going to also wear out the people. So at least there's a biblical premise for speaking about caregiver fatigue. And Jethro in this case proposed to him delegation, told him organize people into smaller teams and put people in charge to administer or adjudicate over those smaller things. And you should work like a Supreme Court of sorts, where the more weightier things are brought to you. And interestingly, that system was not only adopted, but it became Israel's judicial system, lasting all the way through to Jesus' time, that's the way it was structured. And it helped safeguard Moses and the audience from burning out. And I think modern pastors and sheikhs and imams, religious leaders who need to give care, may need to adopt such. So for instance, rather than assuming responsibilities that are outside of their capacity, they probably may need a guild that helps them handle some things, or they may need to offload some administrative things so that they can create bandwidth for caregiving concerns. Otherwise, mixing all of these things may be a challenge. I have seen in a few congregations where that are more structured, that are very well organized, where the church is not an individual's property. It is so organized that the pastor or the sheikh has a accountability person, like a sort of pastor's pastor. So the place where the pastor goes to decompress, where he's not just asked about baptisms and burials and increase and tithe and offering, but he's asked about his or her welfare. And I think if we begin embracing that, it's going to be important. And then thirdly, I think down the road, we're going to have a discussion about boundaries. I believe religious leaders need to be able to reinforce the concept of boundaries amongst their followers, so that their followers can be able to appreciate there's a time and a season for everything. And that way they will only call for the genuine emergencies. If death has occurred in your family at 11 in the night, that's a genuine emergency. But I think if boundaries are able to be created properly, then it will A, protect the members so that they can build their own resilience, and B, protect the pastor so that they are not burning out for want of boundaries. As one of my mentors told me, if they're disorganized, do not let them disorganize you. It was a very profound thing I was told as a teenager, beginning my speaking ministry, and it stayed with me up to this time. So those would be some of the perspectives to your question.
Thank you, sir. Hamida and Asaf, do you have any follow-up to what Sir said?
Maybe from other perspective in terms of actually compassion fatigue, we need also to appreciate that one of the key elements is that either professionals or non-professionals will be exposed to a very traumatic sort of event. If you look at from professional perspective, there are some departments, especially within the healthcare system, that individuals are prone to getting compassion fatigue. If like individuals who work in the surgical department, individuals who work in pediatric units, and even the individuals working in the palliative care setting, it breaks even a healthcare worker heart when they lose a child. And you'll find people go out of their way as much as possible to try and save the life of that child. So the professionals, and especially from those sort of departments, they are more prone to developing compassion fatigue because of the rate of mortality sometimes is high, and sometimes also the people they end up losing is a big challenge. From non-professional perspective, the biggest challenge is that you have, if I use your example, you have your cousin who was busy working in our shamba in Shags. All of a sudden now she has been sort of to be transitioned to be a caregiver. So most likely this is an individual who has never even seen somebody is very sick. They have never seen an individual with an open wound. So now they are sort of being expected actually now even to start even sort of even dressing the wounds even at home. And those are sort of the traumatic events that end up pushing these individuals into what we call the compassionate fatigue. And even as what he has mentioned about even our pastors. So they'll come, they'll pray, and sometimes based on, again, and forgive me for saying this, based on sometimes also from their biblical or the religious teachings, they're expecting that they will come and pray to this individual and they are going to get healed. When they come tomorrow and they find the patient has gone, that sort of even breaks them. And he says, he said then they don't have a lot of supportive mechanism to sort of support them even as they continue counseling and supporting other patients. So you'll find these individuals out of that compassionate fatigue, they end up actually now giving poor quality of care to their patients. And that's why now you'll find when we say the healthcare workers sort of, they are no longer humans because now they become very aggressive. Whenever, even when the patient says hi to you in the corridors of the hospital, you respond very negatively because you're just irritable and you're just frustrated. You feel you're not able to achieve what you're able to achieve. And then all these other issues that, as he mentioned, the burnout, poor social care, you neglect yourself, you neglect others. You end up even, sometimes even some of these individuals have ended up even having issues of domestic violence. You find sometimes even very key, well-paid healthcare workers, but when you look at their family, you can tell their family is quite neglected because this healthcare worker doesn't even able to appreciate that they have given all to the professional and forgotten their well-being and the well-being of their families. And some of these actually even end up now in abusing drugs. We have a lot of young medics who are using drugs, and some of them actually even they have lost their lives from that practice. So yes, this compassionate fatigue is quite real, and there's need to raise more awareness so that at least we can put more protective mechanism to protect both professionals and non-professionals as they continue supporting patients.
Thank you, Asaf. Hamida, do you have a follow-up after Saya and Asaf?
Yeah, I think I just need to mention that, this topic is very important, and just to understand the seriousness of, of the compassion fatigue and, the burnout. And just, sometimes some of these caregivers are exposed to situations that are quite traumatic. So we need to also talk about PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, because sometimes the caregivers are exposed to situations that eventually, get to them and they start, suffering themselves. So the issue of vicarious trauma, not just vicarious trauma, but to the extent of PTSD, which is quite serious. Yeah. So I do, agree with what Saya was talking about, and as he was talking, I just, felt like, this is like, a therapist's life, but on steroids. It's because as a therapist, I am taught to have boundaries. But for the pastor, for the imam, the structures are not very clear about, especially when you talk about boundaries, and people look up to the pastors, look up to the imam, and they see them as their saviors to some degrees. Like I have this problem, I have an argument with my husband in the middle of the night, I need to call the imam, I need to go to call the pastor. So I think it is important for us to start putting structures in place, start educating, the leadership in both the mosques and the churches to understand the roles of the pastors and the imams, and also to teach the masses what this whole work is about. Because in many situations, the pastors or the imams go to those homes to sort situations that can actually wait until the following day or even the following week, or can be handled during the day. For example, I'll give an example. As a therapist, if one of my clients wants to commit suicide, I cannot run to their home in the middle of the night. What I need to put in place as structures is such that they're able to give me their next of kin. In case they call me and they are completely suicidal, then I need to reach out to the relatives or whoever the contact people are, so that that person can be taken to a hospital. Because it doesn't matter how much cancer, I cannot be able to cancel that person at that point. That client of mine needs to be in hospital. That's the priority. So us teaching ourselves, us teaching our masses where things need to happen, and the boundaries, I feel is very important. And also for the caregivers, just knowing what your boundaries are. What is it that I can do and what is it that I cannot do as a caregiver? Educating myself about for example, the disease or the illness of my patient, because sometimes our expectations are completely skewed. We don't understand what is happening, and the way we push ourselves to the to a certain extent where we are hurting ourselves. Yet if we understand the situation, maybe we would have taken a different direction. Asking for what you need, learning to say no. Forgiving yourself, I feel, is very important, because caregiving comes with a lot of guilt and a lot of doubt. Yeah, feeling like, maybe I should have done this, or why am I thinking like this? Why am I angry, for example, with the patient? Why am I upset with this person? A lot of guilt, a lot of self-doubt, and that hurts us instead of helping us. So learning to forgive yourself and understanding that, as long as I'm doing my best, that's all that counts. Even as a pastor, even as an imam who is caregiving, knowing that as long as I'm giving my best, that's all that counts. Me removing myself from the situation is not being rude. We have to teach people as well, how to treat us, or how to whatever relationship that we need to have with them. If you continue saying yes, 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 a time will come when you'll mess up or you'll crash. So instead of going through that route, learning to say no when you need to say no is okay. Giving yourself permission to do that, I feel, is important. Yeah.
I want us to spend a few minutes on a special category of caregiving. You have a sibling who has special needs, and your mother has been taking care of that special needs child, and you've just been there. It's your sibling. You've gone on to do your life, and then your parents die, and then this sibling is handed over to you, and you have no clue. Maybe you don't even have the resources, and everyone else has dumped. Maybe you're the nyumba kubwa sibling, and everyone has dumped that sibling on you. how do you handle, how should families handle this? How should this caregiver handle this? They have been thrust into this position due to death, and they were not ready for it. How do you handle, the special needs, people living with disabilities and all that? And how do you save yourself from not going down the route of taking substances to just heal your pain, to cover your pain?
I could go first.
Okay, go ahead.
Unfortunately, non-professional caregivers are not prepared to the act of caregiving. Unlike healthcare professionals or even the pastors and such, who are sort of prepared during the training, they do even sort of maybe the clinical attachment and such. So even when they are getting into the job, they sort of have some element of psychological and even practical experience and expectations. The non-professional caregivers, today you are well doing all things with your life. Your loved one falls ill, and tomorrow you start the journey of being a caregiver. With zero experience, zero clue, and sometimes even zero sort of support. So one of the things we need to encourage these individuals is to as much as possible mobilize community resources as possible. So you have other members of the family, of the community, stepping in one way or another and participating in that aspect of caregiving. They could be probably providing financial support. They could be probably even participating in actual care of the patient. So if you have a sick loved one, you are able to make even a rota, even where probably one sibling sets in, comes, takes care of the patient during the day, the other one maybe at night, and such a sort of a schedule. I've seen that helps a lot for the families, but only works very well when their family relations are intact. But when you have a broken family, then sometimes achieving those sort of arrangements becomes a challenge. But also pull out your friends and help them, let them come on board and help you. If you pull your friends, one of the things I've realized is that friends come, and the first few weeks, they have a lot of energy. They are very eager to help and support and participate. By the time you are getting to 1 month, they have all taken off and focus on other things. So even as you put your friends, try and make sure the engagement is sort of structured so that they can be able to provide care and support from a long-term sort of perspective rather than just focusing on a temporary support. Again, one of the things as a caregiver that and I think healthcare professionals need to support caregivers is to help them being organized and run sort of a schedule. I've really encouraged caregivers to sort of make a schedule that aligns to their needs rather than making a schedule that aligns to the needs of the patient. So if your patient is supposed to take medication, let's say after every 6 hours, how do you organize that schedule to fit within your own schedule so that at least you don't find yourself waking up in the wee hours of the night to give patient medication? Tomorrow morning, you wake up to waking up very early to prepare your kids for breakfast before they go to school and such. So if you help the caregiver to become more organized, then helps them in terms of coping. And finally, also sometimes also letting the caregiver define where their limits are and the things they are not able to do, and let they document that or verbalize that in their family settings. They say, this is my limit, this is the only support I'm able to give to our mom or to our brother or to whoever. And I need everyone else then to come on board and fill in the gaps. And that also sometimes also helps. And I encourage the healthcare professionals who are in this platform also to become the voice of the caregiver, because sometimes the caregiver, they are overwhelmed or they are overruled by the senior members of the family. But if you have a professional coming on board and being able to become the voice of that caregiver and say, I strongly feel the caregiver is getting sort of burnout and needs support, I find that the family members are able to come on board and give the care and the support to this caregiver.
Thank you. Hamida, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, okay. So, I mean, first of all, I mean, you can imagine now starting to be the caregiver of a sibling that you cannot throw away. It has become your responsibility automatically. I think that one of the most important things is to educate yourself about the condition of your relative, of your sibling, for example. Get to understand, what does this condition look like? What does it mean? Okay, and also doing your own research and finding out, are there resources around me that I can be able to tap on to support myself, take care of my sibling. So you may find that there are some certain institutions that actually are able to take care of, people living with different disabilities, and most of them are actually boarding schools. So you may find that if it's somebody who is, is still able to go to school, you can put them in a boarding facility where they are taken care of, and your job can be, the regular visits to make sure that they're okay. That will at least help you to a big big degree to take care of the sibling. If they're over age, they cannot go to school, finding out where they can learn a skill to be able to help themselves is also important, so that they can remove some of that pressure off you. Asking your siblings to be able to chip in wherever they can is also important, reaching out for help. But if you are also able to employ somebody to be there and support you with the caregiving, that can also be, a good strategy. Just having somebody employed, if you can afford it, that is, to be there at home, and you help each other taking care of the loved one is also one of the other strategies that I would want to mention. But most importantly, regardless of what the situation is, you must figure out how your self-care, you have to take care of your self-care just within that structure, the new structure that you have. By the end of the day, you need to take care of yourself. So do research, find out whether resources are there around you where you can tap in and get the help that you want. Find out what this condition is, and the prognosis and all that, just to understand exactly what you are in for, and also reaching out for help where you can, paying for help where you can, if you can afford it, and also, of course, taking care of yourself, self-care. Yeah.
Okay. I'm opening the floor to questions. I do not know where I'm echoing, but I just want us to ask ourselves whether the US way is the way to go. Should we, our villages are being sold off. Every day there's a 10 by 10 plot being sold. All our farms are gonna be sold in Kenya, right? So that village living, that communal living is going to end eventually, whether we bury our heads in the sand or not. Should we embrace nursing home, long-term care facilities? I know even the immigrants, my people, any people of color over here are not taking their people to nursing homes for long-term care. Should we start embracing that thought as a people? Because we are gonna get there, whether we like it or not. And if you have any questions, you can raise your hand, you can put it in the chat. But Hamida and Asaf, what do you think about long-term care and nursing homes?
Okay, as I wait for Asaf, I think it's a good idea to some degree, because I mean, most of our elderly people love their homes, seeing their own chicken there and their own, buzzies, and just being in that environment. Even some of them, when you take them to hospital, they just want to go back home. It's a safe space for them. It's a place that gives them peace. It's a place that supports their healing. I think if we can find a way to preserve that to as much as we can, that would be okay. But we have situations where we have children who have money, but they don't have the time to be there for their aging parents, for example. Yeah. So if there are good facilities where such parents can be taken care of, I would rather, we have that than neglecting them at home, and they're suffering, or they have, people taking caregivers who don't really care about them. They're abusing them. They're putting them through a tough time. So I would say to some degree, I think we can try and see how that works, especially for the people who are not completely, completely not able to take care of their aging parents, and their aging parents are struggling. Yeah.
Asaf, same question. Asaf, same question,
Yeah.
and then I just want you to at least mention the people you're actually seeing, when you do home visits. What kind of disease afflictions are needing caregiving in the Kenyan setting, so that we can actually know and plan ahead?
Okay. I always, when I'm having conversation with my friends and who are in intimates and probably individuals between the age of 35 to around 50, I always tell them that we ourselves are not able to take care of our elder generation because of the work and other commitments. Our kids will have actually our children will not even be able to take care of us, because even then they'll have bigger needs, and probably they'll be in different parts of the continent, and they might not be able even to be physically available to take care of our kids. Looking at those scenarios, I always encourage individuals to start looking at old people's homes and start sort of making contributions and supporting them and seeing how best they could improve the welfare of those facilities, because in their old age, most likely some of us will end up in those sort of facilities. It's a fact, because families are heavily disintegrating, communities are heavily disintegrating, and you'll find also that the aspects of the economic challenges will not give us or even our children the opportunity to take care of the elderly or the sick. And therefore, we must start thinking about having such facilities. I've seen a bit of an increase in number of some of those facilities in major towns. I know there is a facility like in Nyeri, in Nakuru. I think there's one coming up in Eldoret, and several in Nairobi. And therefore, because people are now starting to appreciate that that might be a possible alternative. The only challenge is that most of these institutions are either community or privately owned, and they have very limited funding from the government. And I think going forward, we need to also to start looking at how do we influence policies so that they can be able to offer some sort of financial support to these institutions for sustainability perspective. When I provide home-based care services to patients and families, they cut across sort of ages. So sometimes they are sick children. Maybe they are born with severe congenital anomalies. And that's unfortunately that these are kids who probably will live for long, and they'll have to be cared for years. And also, we also have individuals suffering from different illnesses, could be cancer, could be HIV, could be stroke, and such. And then also now we also have individuals who are just elderly, and they're just having their old age sort of complications. And also we also have a category of individuals with Alzheimer and dementia. So it's a very broad area, but it's how we look at it. Our entry point is these are individuals who their illness is sort of a long term, and probably they would have very limited aspect of getting cure, and therefore they need to be supported as much as possible from a home care perspective.
Okay. I think I've asked all the questions I wanted to ask, unless Hamida and Asaf, there's something you wanted me to cover that I didn't cover. The only ask for me as Kenyans is we need to plan for our end of life care. I see it in the ICUs here that people are having very massive strokes, but the people, because they believe everything here would be honky-dory, they want to drag on the person's non-existent life for forever. Have plan on what you want to have happen to you when that time comes, when you cannot do the day-to-day activities, how do you want your people to take care of you? Don't leave them miserable. Don't leave them hanging. Have a plan. Write a will. Have an end-of-life care plan. So Hamida and Asaf, is there anything I didn't sikutaja that you would want to add or subtract? Hamida, you're mute. Yeah.
Okay, Hamida, go first.
Sorry, I think we've covered quite a bit for Sai. Yeah, I think I cannot think of anything that you've left out unless Asaf has something. Yeah.
No, I think we have tackled most of the key areas, and I'm happy that how we have summarized it very well. Our kids and younger generation are not our backup for our old age. We need to start planning for our old age as early as now, and ensure that we have sort of supportive structures in our community that will be able to support us when that time comes.
Okay.
Tusigoje watoto wetu ati ndio watatusaidia.
Your child is not your retirement plan. That should be in everyone's head. Is there anyone with a burning questions? We usually cover these things thoroughly, so I never get many questions, but I wouldn't mind. Next, we're gonna rest for 2 weeks because these topics also drain me, and I'm practicing self-care as I've been taught by Hamida. But in the month of October, we are gonna cover a very difficult topic: intimate partner violence, domestic violence. So we're actually splitting it into two because of the way it's big. So you will, the same way you get this link, you shall get the link for the same. So unless kuna maswali, I'd like to, on behalf of Sai, he had to step away. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Hamida and Asaf. Thank you for always coming on board. And you know, I always call you in the middle of nowhere with my topics in the head. But asanteni sana, wapenzi watazamaji, asanteni sana for joining us on these forums. It's helpful, and just spread the word. If you can afford to teach my cousin Naliaka how to have to practice self-care, sponsor Asaf and Hamida to go and to a Buchifi village and just talk to them. That's one by one, we will teach people and just make Kenya a better place. Asanteni sana. You can leave at your own pleasure. In 2 minutes, I will end the conversation. Thank you.